The air in the conference room was thick, almost heavy, with noise. Conversations overlapped like chaotic waves crashing against one another. Coffee mugs clinked against the glossy wooden table, keyboards tapped somewhere in the background, and laughter erupted in short, sharp bursts. Ideas, some sharp, others shallow, were tossed into the air like juggling balls, each trying to outshine the last. And there, in the middle of it all, sat Emma Caldwell. Silent. She wasn't sulking, nor was she lost in thought, at least, not in the way her colleagues imagined. She was simply listening, observing, measuring the weight of every word spoken around her. To her co-workers, that silence was not a sign of focus or restraint. It was, in their eyes, a flaw, an absence of ambition. That day, the perception became dangerous. Emma, her manager, Jacob Larson, said with a smirk, breaking the rhythm of the meeting. He leaned back in his chair, spinning a pen between his fingers as though he were preparing to deliver a punchline. "You've been here for 3 years, and I don't think I've heard you raise your voice once." A ripple of chuckles spread through the room. Someone at the far end mimed zipping their lips. Jacob tilted his head, pretending to be curious. Maybe this just isn't the place for someone so invisible. More laughter. This time louder. Emma didn't respond. Her eyes flickered briefly toward Jacob, then back to the notepad in front of her. She'd learned long ago that sometimes responding only fed the fire. But her silence was mistaken for weakness. That afternoon, in a small glass-walled office that felt more like an aquarium than a workspace, Jacob slid a termination letter across the desk toward her. "We need leaders, Emma. People who can command a room. I just don't think this role suits you," he said, feigning sympathy. Outside the transparent walls, colleagues watched with that particular kind of office curiosity, a mixture of pity and gossip-hungry intrigue. She nodded, quietly, not agreeing, but accepting. And then she began to pack. One mug, chipped at the rim. A small plant with leaves beginning to curl at the edges. A framed photo of her and her younger brother at the county fair. Each item went into the box with deliberate care, like pieces of a life that had been temporarily stored here but never truly belonged. When she stepped outside, the city greeted her with rain. Not poetic drizzle, real, soaking, cold rain that seeped through her coat. Her umbrella was broken, one rib sticking out like a jagged limb. Her phone had died somewhere between the HR office and the elevator. Her savings account, already thin, now looked like a cliff edge she was dangerously close to stepping off. She didn't cry. Inside, however, there was motion, a storm uncoiling, silent but electric. When she reached her small apartment, she didn't collapse onto the couch. She didn't pour a drink or call a friend. Instead, she toed off her soaked shoes, pulled her hair into a messy bun, and opened her laptop. Not to write a resignation letter. That part of her story was over. She began drafting something else entirely, a business plan. Outside her window, the rain became a steady drumming on the glass, punctuated by the occasional rumble of distant thunder. Inside, the glow of her laptop lit her face as her fingers moved with uncharacteristic urgency. For years, she had worked in the shadows of louder voices, watching projects succeed or fail not based on merit, but on the volume of the person presenting them. She knew she could build something better, not just a company, but an idea so strong it would demand attention even if delivered in a whisper. Her vision was bold, a revolution in software security. Something lean, impenetrable, and ahead of every curve. She called it Nova Shield. She didn't post about it online. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't seek validation from friends or strangers. She simply worked. For the next 2 years, Emma transformed her garage into a small but formidable development space. The walls were lined with whiteboards, scribbled with algorithms and architectural diagrams. Her desk was crowded with empty coffee cups and meticulously labeled folders. She coded in silence. She researched in silence. She tested, failed, reworked, and tested again, always in silence. Investors were skeptical. The first few meetings were almost comical in their dismissal. "You need a stronger personality," one told her. "This market's saturated," another said with a shrug. But then something shifted. A small cybersecurity firm in Eastern Europe adopted her software. A few months later, a federal agency signed a contract. Within a year, Nova Shield was not only profitable, it was on the radar of the largest technology buyers in the world. Meanwhile, Lexaritech, the company that had once fired her, was unraveling. The first scandal hit when a massive security breach exposed the data of millions of users. Then came the lawsuits, the layoffs, the plummeting stock prices. Each month, their desperation became more visible. And then, one spring morning, the tech industry buzzed with unexpected news. Nova Shield had acquired Lexaritech. The announcement shook the markets, but it was nothing compared to what happened at the annual Lexaritech press conference. The stage was dressed with banners bearing a sleek, updated logo. Rows of reporters filled the room, cameras ready. The host stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said with a practiced smile, "please welcome the new CEO of Lexaritech, Emma Caldwell." For a heartbeat, the room froze. Then, as if on cue, the murmurs started. Emma walked onto the stage wearing a tailored black suit. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her expression composed but unreadable. She stood at the podium, let the silence settle, and then spoke. "You fired me for being too quiet," she began, her voice steady and clear. "But I wasn't silent. I was listening. And now it's time for a new voice, mine." The applause that followed wasn't polite or obligatory. It was real. The same colleagues who once laughed at her now stood in awe. Over the next year, Emma transformed Lexaritech from the inside out. Toxic managers were replaced. Outdated systems were overhauled. She launched Silent Leaders, a mentorship program designed for introverts in tech, proving that leadership wasn't about volume, it was about vision, integrity, and execution. Under her leadership, Lexaritech not only recovered, it thrived. And through it all, Emma remained the same in one crucial way: she didn't waste words. She spoke when it mattered, and when she did, the room listened. Sometimes, the world underestimates the quiet ones. But when they finally speak, they don't need to shout to shake the room. If you've ever been overlooked, dismissed, or told you're too quiet, remember this story. This is Echoes of Valor.